we're going to have a presentation by Mrs. Shante Reese-Smith. And she's just so excited, and it's been such an invigorating process for me and for her and the students. So, Mrs. Smith, if you're ready at this time, the floor is yours.
Good evening, and thank you so much for allowing me to come and share a little bit of my experience with you guys. First, let me say that it's an honor to be standing here because I'm very passionate about my culture, a piece of my culture. And while I'm not from York, Pennsylvania, I am living in Pennsylvania, and it's hard for me to talk to my students with the lack of passion for their community if they don't have the passion for their community. And so in order for me to teach it, I have to also absorb it and learn it myself. So part of this experience for me was also educational because there's a lot about York, Pennsylvania for me that I did not know about that I'm loving, because when I walk around this community that I live in with my husband and my grandchildren now, I get an opportunity to really identify with some of the monuments that are out in our community. Prior to me being able to do that, I had no idea who these people were. So now being able to teach it to my students was very monumental, because then came the questions, and then I was able to dive into it with them. Can I borrow a clicker? Sure. Thank you. So, thank you. This opportunity, I put together just a little bit of what I do. I teach the middle school. This is the first year that the middle school was introduced. And my current position is the educator of human services. While I do not teach social studies, I do teach the career component of the human services department. And yes, African American people do have jobs. They have careers. So, students of mine were not able to identify with the fact that there were people in the past that were founded, and they were the foundation of why our community was built. So I took the time to put a presentation together. Lincoln Charter Middle School is the legacy. So this is the first year of the middle school, and we have named it the Legacy School. And it kind of is simultaneous with the legacy of the founders that was here in York, Pennsylvania. The investment in bridging the gap. Partnered up with Brian Wade and introducing the Keystones Oral Histories curriculum to Lincoln Charter Middle School has awakened a new perspective outlook for our students, our community, and our future. In order to build on where we are going, we have to respect, pay honor, learn, and embrace where we as a community have been. Where are we going? We need to go back. I'm sorry, guys. Our past leaders prepared for our future. A lot of opportunities that, and I've taken, I had the opportunity to take a few walks, like, field trips within our community. And a lot of times when we're walking in the community, the children are asking, Mrs. Reese-Smith, do you know why this monument is here? And a lot of times we're talking to a generation of kids who were brought up by parents who are also young people who may not have the knowledge of this. What I found and loved was that while we're teaching this, we were able to do field trips that the students could then bring home and teach back to their parents and their grandparents. Some of our students had no idea that even their grandparents were veterans. So when their faces were coming up, I remember a time frame when we were working on this project, their faces would come up and they would say, Mrs. Reese-Smith, stop. That's my grandmother. And they had no idea that their grandmother even participated as a veteran or was in the military, so that brought different dialogues. The African American culture, and I definitely want to highlight this particular sentence. The African American culture has been missing in our school systems for decades. At one time, and I'm also from Queens, New York, I had went to elementary school and junior high school there, and I could not identify as a student with a lot of the history that was presented. While, some of the people that they spoke about were important, I did not have any identification with them. Mayor Kim Gracie is somebody that I would love to talk about, because Mayor Kim Gracie is monumental because she was the 24th mayor of York, Pennsylvania, but she's an African-American woman who also was a veteran. And a lot of times our young ladies do not get an opportunity, especially the ones of color, do not believe that they can be anything other than being a parent or being somebody's babysitter. They have to see that there is something greater for them. So this was something that they was able to identify. Half of these young people didn't even know who Kim Gracie was. And then I would like to highlight Mr. William Lee Smallwood. This project that we did, which I'm going to show you the project that was one of the projects that a lot of our family, our children, I call them my family, sat down, and we had an opportunity to highlight Mr. William Lee Smallwood. Mr. William Lee Smallwood, his family had the opportunity to interview with a few of my students and to sit down and get some of the questions answered. What did he do? How come he was popular on the council? They asked, I think they even asked questions on what his favorite color was. It was amazing to have that dialogue with the children so that the children can see their history and how monumental Mr. Smallwood was in the community. The commonality between our past and our future. At Keystones versus at Lincoln Charter. At Keystones, they are conversation starters, where at Lincoln Charter, we are communicators. At Keystones, they are bridge builders. At Lincoln Charter, we're bridge walkers. Keystones, they're documentarians. At Lincoln Charter, we're researchers. Here at Keystones, I said here, I'm sorry, but I am here at Keystones. They're photojournalists, and at Lincoln Charter, we're investigators. At Keystones, we're educators. At Lincoln Charter, we're brain boxes. At Keystones, we are historians, and at Lincoln Charter, they're students. And then at Keystones, they're curriculum designers and the family tree connectors, and we are descendants of that. The Human Service Project that I brought together, again, I teach the career component. So while we dove a little bit into the history part of it, the career component was they had to identify a project that allowed them to go back to where our York veterans started, came out of, and unfortunately some of the York veterans who did not make it out, who may have passed away and their life ended at a short time, they were able to highlight what they did in that time frame, in that military. So the rubric was how I presented it. They were graded on neatness in the picture. Did it have a title? Was it a sequence bullet? Did they complete every bullet? And each bullet had a highlighted area. Who was your person? Did it have a cover picture? What was their history? What was their education prior to going into the military? Because some people at that time frame didn't need to have graduated from high school. So we had to dive into that. Did the people have a family? Who were their siblings? Do you know anybody within our community with the same last name? This was the final project, and I have them still upstairs. And they took so much pride into this project. There were 8 bullet points that needed to be shared, and if, of course, they didn't have 8 bullet points, you failed. But the 8 bullet points highlighted many attributes of the curriculum from Keystone. So while I didn't dive totally into the curriculum, I was able to pull pieces from the curriculum and marry it into what I'm teaching as human services. Our future leaders are innovative, collaborative, and very adaptive. Technology is a big thing. It's something when you could take a part of history and bring it into our future. So this part was an exciting opportunity for them because they was able to do some research on their iPads and not just have to sit down and go back into books. But books was necessary for this project as well. This was an opportunity where some of our young people were able to interview with some of the Smallwood family. And this is Mr. William Lee Smallwood's daughter, as well as his brother, one of his younger brothers. And we do have with us another younger brother in the audience. I would like to share some of the experiences if you are okay with it.
I'm learning about their childhood, so most people didn't grow up like super rich or like wealthy. They had to like fight for their reasons. I did Morgan Small. I searched his name on Google, showed different people that were in like the war and captain later, so I had to search up and mainly city council, and I attended that interview on Zoom so I could get extra help. Learning about what his family did for him after he passed away.
I love learning about Leon's life and like what he did while he was serving in the military. What I found most interesting was learning about like his childhood and what he did as a child. Yes, I had contact with Miss Smallwood, acting nurse. What I found hard process of the research was when I was asking questions, but then like the same Wikipedia kept coming up. Learning about his life and what he did for his education. I love learning about his life. It's always important to learn about your Black history because there was always important people who were Black.
I think that it was a very awesome experiment learning about Smallwood's life and the family. He served in the military and he's from York, PA. He was a commanding officer and he'd be treated in battle because he wasn't in a good position, so he refused to fight. And his commanding officer didn't like that he did that, so he sentenced him to death. The biggest part about researching was probably his childhood, because I couldn't find too much information on that. My biggest takeaway was just learning about his history and his goal of like being in the military.
I had an opportunity to actually sit down and talk to a lot of the 5th grade, and right now we have a rotation where my 6th grade students are now starting this process, but the 5th graders are constantly, in this moment, they are in business and marketing, but they still come back and they're asking me, who are you doing now this month? And do we get an opportunity to get that put into our curriculum? I love the fact that they're asking because that means that they're engaged. We need this in our community.